Good morning. My name is Retta Carl. I'm a broker here in the state of Oregon with Premier Property Group. Thank you for joining us today. Today I am with Steve Macy from Mann Mortgage, and we're going to talk about pre-qualification and what kind of financing you need to purchase a home in today's market.
Good morning, Retta.
Thank you for joining me.
So what can I answer? What questions can I answer for you?
So a little bit further into the loan process, people are always very concerned about closing costs on a loan.
Yes.
Tell me what that involves, what closing costs can cover, how much they might be. Does it vary from loan to loan?
Yes. Well, one thing I also do, if the borrower has the time to, say, spend 1 or 2 hours with me, I will give them estimated closing costs in that first meeting. I have calculators for all the title companies. I have access to property tax information, and I can pretty accurately estimate homeowners insurance costs. So basically your closing costs, there's 2 parts to the closing costs. The first part is your down payment. If you're in a conventional or an FHA loan, there will be a down payment. If we're talking about VA or USDA, either veterans or rural development loans, they are 0 down. So there we're not really dealing with the down payment, simply the closing costs. And a rule of thumb is closing costs are approximately 3.5% of the purchase price.
Okay.
Just sort of a rule of thumb that I've found over the last 10 years has held pretty true.
Okay.
What goes into your closing costs? Well, of course, you have any fees that the lender or bank would charge, because you'll have administrative costs, some processing costs. Then, of course, once you have the home under contract, you'll have an appraisal. And appraisals are running higher than they were a few years ago. Today, they're probably $750 to $850. A couple of years ago, they were $450.
Yes.
And those prices are completely set by the appraisers. We don't make a penny off of the appraisal. That money goes straight through onto the appraiser. These are the fees that they set.
Okay.
Then, of course, you'll have reserves for homeowners and property tax. Even if you choose to put 20% down, you will pay the first year of homeowners insurance and however many months of property taxes are required to make sure that on November 15th, everything is there you need to pay your first year's taxes.
So that's
changes.
all rolled into the closing cost?
That's all part of the closing cost.
Okay, good.
So you're not really losing that money. Some people go, oh my gosh, my closing costs are this much. And I go, well, think of it, almost half of it is generally money that's being set aside for you for your homeowner's insurance and property tax costs. So you're not really losing that money, you're moving it from a bank or savings into another savings account.
Right.
That's insured by the government. Then, of course, you have the title company fees. And the title company, of course, they're also in business. So they will have a settlement fee, which is, all of the title company fees are on a sliding scale based upon the amount of the purchase price. So it's a percentage of the purchase price. But generally, we're talking, again, perhaps another $2,000 or $3,000.
Okay.
Because you will have an owner's title policy. Basically, what the title company does, it's their responsibility to make sure that both you, the buyer, and the seller, and the property have clear title, that it can be sold without any complications. They want to make sure there are no liens or judgments or encumbrances upon either the seller, their property, or you, the buyer.
Which I'd like to point out at this point that it's a really good reason to use a real estate broker and a mortgage financer in the first place.
Yes. I get questions sometimes about what we call FSBOs, for sale by owner. And I find that generally from what I've seen in the past, as a seller, you don't get as much as you could have gotten for your home working with a listing agent. And also for the buyer. The buyer's agent is there to help negotiate the contract for you.
Right, and to make sure that all the paperwork is handled properly.
Otherwise, you really would have to get an attorney involved in a lot of cases, and that's very expensive. So generally on the buying side, the buyer's not paying anything for the purchase of that home. I mean, they're not paying any of the costs of the buyer's agent they're working with. the buyer's agent and the listing agent, as am I, we're all compensated out of the final closing of the home.
Right.
So it doesn't cost the buyer anything to work with a buyer's agent, and I strongly recommend that. Also, if you're wanting to sell your home, I strongly recommend you work with a listing agent. Because, again, this is a legal contract. There's
Yes.
a lot of legal documents that have to go back and forth, and a lot of negotiations that have to take place.
Right. So tell me about interest rates.